Hello there, and welcome to this Screen Chronicles. I'm Steve, and with me, as always, is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's right.
And today we are talking the new show that it's fully wrapped up now, streamed on Disney Plus, called Kenobi, based on Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It's actually called Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It is called Obi-Wan Kenobi, people. And so it's a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi after Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and before the original trilogy, A New Hope, Episode 4. Obi-Wan's life in that time period. I think this is going to be the only season of it. I kind of hope so.
Me too. We'll talk about why.
But it's a show generally where we're going to talk about here is just a spoiler-free review as we normally do, and then we're going to just get into a bunch of spoiler stuff. The spoiler-free stuff, it's going to be so brief. You're going to break a lightsaber. It's going to be so brief. That's how quick it's going to snap. You
that
guys.
Quick.
So generally, I didn't hate the show.
That's putting it nicely.
I liked it more than the sequel trilogy. I'll say that.
Well, that's a great point that you make. I have very conflicting feelings about this show.
Yeah.
Because it just did some things that absolutely scratched my Star Wars nerd itch.
Yes.
So spot on. And it had some we'll get to them. It had maybe one of the coolest scenes that I've seen in my recent Star Wars memory.
Yes.
But with some of those really iconic, and honestly, it had some iconic Star Wars moments in the show several times, but kind of around the iconic moments, there was a lot of flaws I found in the writing, flaws I kind of thought with some of the filming too of it, and the editing I thought was really kind of strange that something's made it into the show after being edited. We'll talk specifically about what those are so you can kind of see if you agree or disagree with us, but that's sort of my feelings on the show. So I went in really wanting to just 100% love it, and there are some things that I am just absolutely enamored with this show, but there are a lot of things with it too that I wasn't happy with. So that's kind of my overall thoughts about it.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, and I think that's what most people feel. And with that, like you said, it's editing. It's weird plot stuff I don't need. It's stuff that doesn't make sense to me, and it just takes me out of even the moments that are amazing. It'll sometimes take me out of it for a second. And I would say some of the performances, there were ups and downs too. I'd say the stuff that I did like was the stuff that was about Obi-Wan. And this isn't a spoiler because in all the promo stuff, Darth Vader, all of their stuff was good and handled well. And
that stuff was so good too that it made up for a lot of the other stuff too. So as far as where my score is when I have my score here in a second.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's what it is. That was the good stuff. And like you said, it was all that other stuff that was most of the show though. And that to me is what, if I would I watch it again? I think I would fast forward to the scenes I like.
I was going to say, I would watch the scenes I like. And I have watched a couple of those scenes specifically several times. One very specifically, over and over again. Yes. We're going to get to that.
So before we get into spoiler talk here, make sure you subscribe, follow us. Before we do that, Colby, let's give it a score here so people get an idea where we're sitting out of 10. What are you giving the Obi-Wan Kenobi show on Disney Plus?
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to go 7 too.
I will do what I must.
But a 7 out of 10, I think, is a fair score.
I think it's fair. And if they would have, I'm glad they didn't mess up those moments because it could have been, it would have been just garbage. And so let's just get into it. Let's get into some spoiler talks here. The spoiler discussion for it. So spoiler alert for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And then we're also going to talk about the prequel Star Wars trilogy. We're going to talk about the original Star Wars trilogy. I'd say just any Star Wars stuff that's happened
could be
before.
Brought up.
Clone Wars, maybe Rebels.
Sure, certainly.
You've been warned, people.
You've been warned.
So I mean, let's get into it. I mean, that was the good stuff. I mean, the good stuff was Anakin and Obi-Wan, and that stuff was knocked out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
most of the time, almost always.
Yeah, I would say
there's still 90%. Like one thing I could think. Yeah. I mean, and I guess jumping right to the absolute highlight, of the show was we actually got kind of two Vader Obi-Wan showdowns, and a theme throughout this show was Obi-Wan has not used his powers for about 10 years. For about 10 years. Let's talk about what we feel about that in just a second. But ultimately, what happens in the show is he slowly starts to get the Force back. He slowly starts to like use his lightsaber again. And it culminates with a like one more epic lightsaber and Force duel with no, not Obi-Wan and Anakin, Obi-Wan and Darth Vader.
Is it Ben and Darth?
Is it Ben and Darth Vader? So
what'd you think of it, man? What'd you think?
This is in the final episode. I freaking loved their final duel.
And we haven't really talked about this much. I think I sent you snaps of one of my reactions, and you said freaking dude a bunch of times. We haven't really talked about this yet.
Yeah, I said when I finished the episode before Steve, I just texted him, dude. And I think I said something to you like this episode's like really making my butt leave the seat. Like it's really did you have and then you sent me Snapchats of you watching it and you were going nuts during the duel too. Yeah, man, like did you love it too or what?
I loved it. So Obi-Wan and Vader showdown in the last episode, and that was most of the episode was actually them. Which I love.
It was a good chunk. And that's what I loved. It was good. Did it beat Revenge of the Sith battle there? I would say no. No, but I wonder if it makes it into our top 5, maybe at least top 10, but maybe top 5.
I would say this is the best lightsaber choreographed fight we've had since the prequels have come out.
I would totally agree with that. I don't think anything in
sequel trilogy
touched it. You could make an argument. Oh, they weren't duels. I'm sorry. I was going to say the Vader Rogue One and the Luke Skywalker Mandalorian. But those weren't.
Yeah, honestly, probably Mando versus the one Moff guy.
Gideon?
Is it Moff Gideon? Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think it's as good as this.
And it's technically it wasn't a lightsaber. It was a
dark saber and dark saber. So I agree. This is probably the best one since the prequels.
Is this straight up lightsaber duel? Yeah, I mean it was awesome. I think one of the things that the sequel trilogy did was they wanted to get away from the flourishing high sort of look of the prequel trilogy. For whatever reason, the sequel trilogy was like trying to distance themselves from the prequels because of when the prequels came out again. So Colby and we're in our mid to late 20s here. We were
mid 20s, late 20s.
Fuck you. So I was in 5th grade when the final episode came out. I was in 5th grade, 11, 12 years old. 11, I think. Yeah, when it came out in 2005, episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So, I mean, these were our Star Wars growing up. Yes. I had seen the other Star Wars before, but
Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi was our hero growing up.
Yeah. And I loved Anakin too. And I think it's like one of the coolest tragedies ever. Anakin falling to the dark side, and because every time we talked about this in our prequel talk, and we could go on forever about this, but I always think like Anakin isn't gonna turn. Like every time I'm like, he's not gonna go, or like he's gonna do the right thing with Mace Windu here. He told everyone he's not gonna. Every time it gets me. I'm just hoping. I'm like, don't go to the dark side. And every time it happens. But anyway, though, so this was our Star Wars, and we get to see Anakin as Darth Vader, and Hayden Christensen, who reprised his character as Anakin Darth Vader in this. He was those characters. And we only saw him as Darth Vader in the suit for like a brief instant in the prequel. So I mean, he was Darth Vader in this show. So I mean, that was so cool.
And they didn't, we were thinking for a while, like, well, the episodes are going by. Why did they have him come back? They could have just had anybody in the suit.
Mm-hmm.
There was only one brief instance earlier, I think, and a couple times in the Bacta tank we saw him.
Mm-hmm.
But then in that final duel, we know why.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it was. First of all, the duel, like I was saying, the choreography was way better than anything I've seen in sequels. Obi-Wan felt like Obi-Wan. He felt a little more like grounded, I would say, in the sense like he wasn't doing like high jumps. He was like just doing like rolls on the ground and stuff.
I would agree.
But like that,
I think that's accurate.
That feels like probably what Obi-Wan at this point would be doing, because if he was this exact same level as he was in Revenge of the Sith, it'd be like, well, how did he end up as, Obi-Wan that we see in
episode 4?
Episode 4, when they're just
like,
doing this.
Because I know originally in Star Wars that the idea was that the lightsabers would be like medieval long swords, I guess.
Yeah, and super heavy.
But then, like when the prequels came out, like you said, it's very flourishy. It's so cool.
I mean, he does
just a million lightsabers twirling around. And I'll say this about the sequel trilogy, and I am okay with them being also not as flourishy as the prequels. So the reason for that is because all of the Jedi in the prequel have been like training in school since they were little kids. So yeah, they should be like absolutely disgusting with their lightsaber, do like whatever they want with it, right? And then like Luke, we never saw that from Luke really, because he didn't have that extent of training. He didn't start when he was super young, but he was still a great Jedi. And then you wouldn't see it from Rey. You wouldn't really see it from Kylo Ren either. Maybe a little bit more Kylo Ren because he did train in Luke's school, but even Luke's school doesn't come from the old
like centuries of Jedi training.
Yeah. So I'm okay with that. But what was cool here in Obi-Wan was to see like a little bit of more flourishing lightsaber duel at the end. But you're right, it was more grounded because Obi-Wan is not peak Obi-Wan.
He did some Anakin moves on Anakin too. Did you see the one where he does like this spin around the back thing? That was
was like a total FU, dude. Like in the middle of the
That's
fight.
what it was. I've got your move right here.
You remember this one, dude? Can you still do this with your dexterity?
You can't.
I don't think you have that kind of pronation.
And I loved how they had Darth Vader fight. I love that he had the cool moves. He was definitely more of a skilled fighter than we'd seen him.
Yeah, this is probably the most skilled I've seen Vader too.
Yeah, but he still felt like he was fighting as a brute. He was still like he's shoulders restricted. Obi-Wan through a rock. He's still just swinging biggie, heavy attacks.
Obi-Wan threw a rock.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan threw rocks.
No, I said when Vader he shoulder checked Obi-Wan through a rock.
Yeah.
Like that was
yeah. He did shoulder checking through. Yeah.
He like tackles him through it. But Obi-Wan, he threw more than just one rock. He threw like 6.
Yeah.
Dude, or like 5.
This whole battle though, or this whole duel, just the way it starts, Obi-Wan's just waiting for him. The landscape was awesome. There's like a big moon in the back. It reminded me of the Last Jedi landscape. Like that sort of like side shot. Like it was pretty cool. And of course, like you already said, Obi-Wan does the move after a couple classic lines.
Man, I just love when they meet and he's just, I will do what I must. Just like he said on Mustafar.
Yeah, instead of Vader saying you will try, or Anakin saying that. I mean, I guess Anakin when they fought was already Vader. He was already calling himself Darth Vader in episode 3. But Vader says, you will die. And the same kind of
like pattern that he said. Yeah.
I will do what I must. I will do what I must.
You will try. Then you will die.
Those moments when they're nodding back to the prequels and stuff, and like they have Obi-Wan go into his stance, And like, god damn,
This was like a gift.
It was a gift. And then Ewan McGregor, his acting this was amazing, right?
I mean, that's what I expect, though. I mean,
yeah, I mean, you expect it, but I mean, like, even
crazy.
that moment when he's just staring down Darth Vader, like, it gave me chills. And then the whole battle's amazing. I love the outdoors aspect of it. It's just using the environment, because that's what also made episode 3 awesome, was the lava and moving around that and dealing with that.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with all these rocks on this planet. And then Obi-Wan just kicks it into high gear at one point, and he just throws a ton of rocks at Vader. And
this felt like Doctor Strange for a second. Yeah. Like, here's my only complaint.
What?
About that rock throw. When he lifted them up, that was a moment I was off my seat. But I thought like the sound effects or something when the rocks were hitting Vader, it kind of like sounded like you took a handful of pebbles and threw it against the wall. Like, it wasn't like, it was kind of like,
because they were big rocks.
Yeah. I guess I can just get over that, because Vader's just so strong that he is just making them explode into pebbles. But
that's what I do like, when Vader's just tough like that. I love when he's just,
I do.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
So, but it was awesome. And then Obi-Wan actually ends up winning
again.
The fight
again. Like, Obi-Wan's like, you wanted more of this? Like, you wanted more?
Oh,
I can give you more, and he does. But I love how he does it too. He uses the hilt of his lightsaber and like jams it into Vader's he like shanks it.
His like breathing apparatus there. Yeah, that's his
controls.
Life support system stuff. Just starts smashing it.
Yeah.
And you just hear Vader doing his wheezing stuff, and then Obi-Wan slashes his back, and then he slashes off half the helmet. And it's this is a moment that, if you watched Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, the animated show, it was pretty much like that, where you see Anakin's face underneath.
And that was with Ahsoka.
It was with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And it was the Anakin from the Clone Wars, which, I mean, it's still Anakin, but to me, when I was growing up, and the Clone Wars stuff, it was like, well, this is what's like some things that could have happened, but there's also a lot of things I was like, this can't be canon, like Darth Maul come back and stuff like that. But anyway, it was awesome to just see Hayden Christensen, Anakin, in the Darth Vader suit, looking like Darth Vader in the suit. So it just like connects the two trilogies in a way that it was so satisfying.
Oh yeah, dude.
And that conversation they have is so good. I was tearing up the first time I was tearing up watching the Star Wars show on my bed, man.
Yeah. Because
Obi-Wan just says, I am
from the heart.
So sorry, Anakin, because he came from the heart at the end of their episode 3 battle, right? He's like, you're my brother, Anakin. I loved you. But at that point, he's like, I'm just here to kill you. You're really bad. But like this show, he's seen Vader, torture people in town. He's had Vader torture him. He's learned more about what happened during Order 66.
I think it's hard to associate him with Anakin still, even though he knows it's Anakin, he can feel it's Anakin, but without seeing his face, it's very easy for him to like not really feel that sort of deep love that he had for Anakin.
Yeah.
And that guilt and that sorrow, because this is a robot in his eyes. It's like, this is like a robotic man who's evil. But when he slashes that helmet open and he sees his eye, he sees his face, he sees his former Padawan who he was with since he was a child. And they went on a million different adventures together,
Yeah, I mean, I think about them
he fell right back into those feelings, like like that.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine, how like soldiers, they are, like how close knit they become, with each other when they're fighting and watching out for each other, and then too, just raising someone, and that's what they essentially did both of those things. Obi-Wan raised him, and then they both went like, you know, through war together. They went through war together. So I mean, like, that's just a crazy bond. And then for Obi-Wan just be like, how can like this person that I thought I knew 100% be this way, you know, that and then so it was crazy emotional, just Ewan McGregor delivering that line, crying, and then all of a sudden Vader's just like, you didn't fail. I killed Anakin. Oh my God.
Yeah. And
so evil.
And they changed the light, because when Obi-Wan says, Anakin, I'm sorry for everything, and it's like so deep from the heart. And he is truly sorry. He's like, yeah, obviously sorry I failed you. I'm sorry Padme died. You know, I'm sorry that you were manipulated by this, you know, sorry for everything that happened. Sorry you were not granted the rank of master. But you know, it was the way he said it was incredible. And at that moment they show, you know, Anakin, and at one point the blue light actually appears on his face. And that's like, to me, that's the glimpse of Anakin that's still in there. Yeah. And because we know Anakin's still in there. We know there is still good in him.
Luke's got to dig it out.
Padme said that, and Luke's got to dig it out. And we know that he does by the end, at the last moment. And that's one of the most beautiful things about the Star Wars story, is that he did redeem himself at the last moment. But again, Vader's too strong at this point. The hatred he basically survives on hatred, right? And so it's just, it is almost like, and you could think about this from like a psychiatry, I guess, or a psychological perspective. It's almost like Anakin's like buried down in the sunken place. You know what I mean?
The sunken place. Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a way, you could look at it like that. And that's kind of what it seemed like in that scene, because then the face turns red and he's like, I killed Anakin, like you said. And I was like, shit. And in a way, he's kind of letting Obi-Wan off the hook there. He's kind of like telling him, like, it wasn't your fault. I did this, not you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this whole series, and again, we said Obi-Wan didn't use, this seems like a good time maybe to talk about this.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan didn't use his powers for 10 years. Yet at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda kind of says, you know, go to Tatooine, training for you I have. And they talk about maybe learning to talk to Qui-Gon again.
Yes, I mean,
but then he didn't do anything for 10 years at all. It was very evident that he buried his lightsabers. He was looking over Luke. He was checking on him. I think he was trying to protect him, but he kind of grew weak. He shut out the Force. And I think a big part of it's due to his guilt. You know, very similar to like Thor, when Thor felt guilty for most of Asgard getting killed, and he sort of became like a slob. He kind of gave up to trying. And I think part of Obi-Wan, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think that was his Obi-Wan's journey through this series, was going from the guilt-ridden guy who just gave up at the beginning to this person now who wants to stand up for good people, and he's not going to worry about his role and what happened to Anakin anymore. He's just going to accept what it is. And yeah, I think that was kind of like the final thing that just sent him over the edge, or put him past all the way healing. In a way, it was actually Anakin saying, I'm super evil and it's not your fault, it's mine.
Yeah. Well, and he didn't know Anakin was still alive.
Yeah.
So and that's the other thing, is he finds out pretty early. I don't love the way he finds out. I think maybe, I don't know how I would have liked it. Maybe him just feeling him in the Force when like Vader arrived on a premises or something, or even Vader telling him who he was. But it's Reva who tells him at sort of at a random time when she's like chasing him down. And it's like, hey, like, I don't know, just like, it didn't, that's not who I wanted to tell him.
Yeah. I would say, so we just talked about probably the best part of the show, right? What we loved. Yeah. And you know, what we were talking about was there was a lot of moments that we didn't like, and that we're like, what? I would say, like we said, the best parts of it was Obi-Wan and Anakin. I know originally back when Solo came out. And so if you remember, little history lesson, everyone. When Disney took over, they released Force Awakens, Episode 7. Everyone pretty much loved that. A lot of people were like, well, it's pretty much just a remake of the first one, but there was enough promises that new cool things were going to happen that everyone loved it. And then Rogue One came out. People were like pretty surprised about how interesting that was. And then Last Jedi came out, and that was like the first big divisive thing with fans. And before that, Disney was like, oh, look, we're rolling in the money with Star Wars. We're doing it. We're killing it. We're getting Star Wars right. Everyone was pretty happy. And then everyone was like, didn't deliver on a lot of promises. And then Solo came out, and it wasn't a complete flop, but it didn't do very well.
I thought it was a good movie, personally.
I thought it was a good movie, though.
But it flopped. To me, it was timing, but yeah. And after Last Jedi.
And it was after Last Jedi, which that's when fans were like, we don't know about Disney and Star Wars, and we're not sure anymore if you're doing this right. So originally, Disney had plans to keep doing like what they were doing. They're going to keep releasing the saga movies and then keep releasing movies that were in between. Rogue One, Solo. They had said at one point they were going to do a Yoda, a Boba Fett, and a Kenobi show or movies. Each of those were going to be movies. So far, and I think after that, they were like, we don't want to really gamble on this anymore and lose any more money. Or potentially lose money on this stuff. And I think that's why a lot of the shows that are now shows stem from that. And but honestly, this is something that I think it should have been a movie. I think is something, and that's what, when I was watching this battle, I was like, I would love to see this on the big screen. I wish I could just see this in a movie theater, just sitting there geeking out. And that's because, to me, there was just a lot of just garbage it was in this show, and it was just stuff I just didn't need. And the stuff that I just didn't need, it didn't justify itself being there because it was bad. And I think Boba Fett, that could have been a movie. I think this should have been a movie. And so the big things that I didn't like how they did was, like I said, all the stuff I liked was when Obi-Wan and Darth Vader met and did stuff. I loved when they first met, and Obi-Wan is still weak and he's confused, and it ends with Vader burning him.
Which was like, how long has he been holding on to that?
Yes.
Like, he'd been waiting to do that.
Right? Oh, man. He's just like...
He's dreamed about that.
I'm putting Obi-Wan in the fire next time I see him.
Fire, dude.
But and with that scene where we could talk about that plot, but there was just so many plot holes and just things I didn't like about the show. But those moments that were good, when Obi-Wan does start using his lightsaber in the Force again, when he goes on the rescue mission, his second rescue mission for Leia, that was good. The ending was amazing. Darth Vader, when Darth Vader's kicking ass against Reva, was amazing. And then seeing some of the Obi-Wan Owen stuff at the very beginning, I thought was actually really good. I liked seeing
and Owen and Owen and Beru fighting like and trying their best to defend Luke. I love that.
I was at first, I was like, oh my God, you're gonna take us away from the Obi-Wan Darth Vader stuff, but seeing his aunt and uncle doing that, I was enjoying it. And
too, especially Beru was like, get the guns, like, let's go.
No, she's like, we're staying right here.
We're staying and we're fighting.
We're fighting, Uncle.
That was awesome.
So I was surprised to like that. But so just going back to what you were saying before when you were explaining Obi-Wan's journey and his guilt and where he was at the beginning, I liked that he was in sort of a dark place at the beginning.
Yeah,
I have to say, though, it did just kind of bug me that Obi-Wan had one thing to do on Tatooine, and that's, or I guess two things you could argue, is use the Force to talk with Qui-Gon and learn his stuff that he knows how to do, and watch Luke. And he's watching Luke, but he's also doing a day job, and he's not. And we see he doesn't use the Force anymore.
I'm thinking to myself, like, so he does use a blaster now, which is weird to see because blasters are so uncivilized.
They're so uncivilized.
And so he is using a blaster. I guess that's how he would defend. But I'm also thinking to myself, if somebody did try to come get Luke, somehow they found out, like, how is he actually going to defend besides just sniping someone from a distance? Like, he's not training to, like, make sure, at least like a mild level of training to make sure he can defend.
That's what, yeah. I mean, and two, with not having the lightsaber, it's, so what if, and in this world, you know, in the original prequels and in original trilogy, there was no Inquisitors. There was only two, right? There was just, but in this world that you're setting him in now, and you're supposed to be still going off of the prequels, there's Inquisitors who have lightsabers, and you're just going to use a blaster and not do anything. So, I mean, you know, I get why when he's on the run, he's not using the lightsaber, because he doesn't want to be ousted as a Jedi, especially the recognizable Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And then set off alarm bells everywhere. But it's just, to me, the big thing was, so you're not, we see Qui-Gon at the very end of the show. It was cool, but I mean,
it could have been cooler. It could have been cooler.
What I would have liked from the show is him starting out in a dark place, using the Force, talking to Qui-Gon, maybe going through lessons.
Middle of the episodes, maybe he was finally able to connect, because he's trying to get back in track, to find it. I
think after 10 years, I think we should have been starting with him being able to do it.
Point, especially because Yoda's like, training for you,
training for you. I have, and he's like, I'm gonna wait maybe 11 years for that. You know, and it's just, so I think we should have been able to see him start during the beginning, but the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, maybe Obi-Wan's distracted and maybe he is still just beating himself up, and there could be lessons from Qui-Gon that don't sink in until the very end.
I would have liked that. Maybe they couldn't get Liam Neeson for that long. Maybe Liam Neeson could only come, like, that's what I kind of thought. So
that's why I was like, maybe
they kept
just
teasing it the whole show. They kept teasing, like, oh, Qui-Gon, are you there? You know, and then the show's like, I look, it's like, oh, there's only a couple minutes left, and I'm thinking to myself, damn, if Qui-Gon doesn't show up at all, I'm going to be so upset. And he did show up, so I was like, okay, at least that happened. But it wasn't much. He didn't even really say anything profound. He's just kind of like, all right, you ready? Like, I've been here. You just couldn't see me.
He's like, cool.
You know, but don't get me wrong here. Don't get me wrong. I am so happy to see Liam Neeson as a Force ghost. I've wanted to see him as a Force ghost for some time now.
I know.
Again, I do wish we had more of Liam Neeson as a Force ghost. I don't know if we ever will. I don't really see Obi-Wan getting another season. I think, speaking to that though a little bit, I think it would be overkill to keep having Obi-Wan and Anakin keep meeting. I think it would be overkill.
I don't want anymore, because I don't want to have them potentially butcher anything. And I'll tell you, you know, like what I was saying with the movie, I think what we saw in this show was, I think they had a movie script for Kenobi roughly written, and I think that's what we saw mushed into this other nonsense. I'm not trying to be harsh, but I mean, just stuff that we didn't need. And I think they had another potential show in mind, which was Inquisitor, who is from Order 66 Jedi, goes through redemption arc, which I think they should have just done that on their own. I think that could have been an interesting show if they would have just taken that, gone with it on its own, and done something with it.
Yeah.
And if you just run with, there's an Inquisitor that's looking for revenge on Darth Vader. I mean, you could make that into like a whole espionage, you know, getting the gang sort of together. Who can I trust on the Inquisitor squad? Like, that could have been its own cool show. But in this show, the only person I wanted to see was Kenobi. And, you know, I mean,
I wonder why.
Is
it because it's called Obi-Wan Kenobi?
I think what it is, I think they were like, well, we have to justify this being a show, and we need to have all this other filler show stuff. We need to have other things going on to.
It's not a bad idea.
But I honestly would have.
Bad idea.
I think it could have just been a show of seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi down in the dumps, going on a mission, running into Vader, having what happened, what we see him happen. Vader beats him up, puts him on fire. He goes away, does a little mission, relearns the Force in the middle of the show, right? And then ends with the battle at the end. That could have been easily could have been
a show.
No, I mean, I would have liked it as just a 2.5 hour movie.
You know? Exactly.
You easily could have done that, right? That's a 1, 2, 3 act part right there. I mean,
I think so.
So, I mean, that's what I would have liked. And so some of the stuff I didn't like was the Inquisitor drama going on. And not because, again, it was bad. I think this could have been a good idea, but there was things that just distracted me. And
I think it was interesting. I think it was a good idea. I think that, especially just the idea of an Inquisitor trying to get revenge on the guy who came in and killed all of her friends and everything, but having to put on a front as like an evil person to be able to get to that point where she can be alone with him.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea. I really do.
Now let me tell you why it wasn't done well.
Okay.
And that's because who we're talking about, the Inquisitor, is Reva, right? Yeah. And so let's just lead with in the real world here, the actor who plays Reva got a lot of like hate and racist comments thrown at her. Yeah. And we know throughout Star Wars history, there's just crazy fans that do that. We know just any crazy fans now reaching out through social media will just message people just terrible stuff.
Just
and again,
gutless, spineless people.
Yeah. And they can't differentiate between the actor and
the character.
And it's also just like,
well, some of it was just straight up racist. Some of it was just straight up racist people being spineless. Just
nothing, not even really anything to do with the show or her performance or anything. And also too, I will say, like I said, but besides that stuff though, I just was not a fan of the Reva arc going on. Right. And I don't hate the actor. I don't think it's her fault she ruins the show. If they said, Steve, you're going to be an Inquisitor in Star Wars in the Kenobi show, you're going to have scenes with Ewan McGregor, I'm going to suck. Steve is going to suck as an actor. I'm going to look at the script and be like, I don't even care if this is good or not. Yeah. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be happy. And then, I'm just going to be thinking, wow, this is amazing. This is the best experience of my life. And then, and then fans come out and give me hate mail and make me feel bad. It's going to leave a sour taste in my mouth then for that. Yeah. And I feel bad for her that happened to her. Yeah. So I think it sucks.
It sucks. And I like that Ewan McGregor put out a video and he goes, all of you who sent that, you're not true Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ewan's sticking up for his co-star in the show. So absolutely deplorable. Anybody who would have sent a message like that or even think about sending a message like that. It's just bad. But I agree with you. Like the Reva's plot lines, they were not my favorite. Now, again, I like the idea. But again, to me, it took away from the stuff I wanted to see.
And also too, the thing that didn't make sense to me was so we find out, and from the very first flashback I saw, the first flashback we see in the first scene of the show is Order 66 going down, kids running for their lives from the clone troopers, right, at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. I immediately knew, I was like, all right, this is going to be, as soon as I saw Reva the Inquisitor, I was like, what? That's her. She's one of the kids. I immediately knew that. I don't know if I think I might have told you that. But I immediately knew that. So I knew that was playing into why she was like dead set on Kenobi, right? And so the thing I didn't like was the rationale for her being dead set on Kenobi was she wanted to get close to Vader.
I don't get that.
And they like kind of said like, well, she was mad at him for not being there, but it's also like he was the only one who went to go kill him. Though
she literally asked, "Where were you when the Order 66 was happening?" And I'm just thinking to myself, like, surviving on Utapau,
also going through Order 66,
also going through Order 66.
after he killed General Grievous.
And then where does he go immediately after?
Jedi Temple
to see if there's any survivors
and to turn off the beacon for everyone to go there.
And the beacon.
So to me, I was like, well, this makes just no sense. And so they never hit on that again. Because as soon as Obi-Wan finds out that's who she is and where she came from, they immediately push that aside and be like, well, I'm really doing all this just for Vader. And it's just like, okay, so you want to get back at Vader for being evil, but at the beginning of the show, you're like going ballistic on townspeople that even the Grand Inquisitor doesn't want you to do. Like, you're cutting off hands, you're just being a dick.
Yeah.
So it's like you are needlessly being a dick to people.
Right.
And now you're like, well, Vader was mean to us. You were literally going to torture Leia just an episode before.
Yeah. And why do you want to kill Luke so bad?
And in
like,
you mean Obi-Wan or Luke? Yeah.
No, Luke. Why did she what's her rationale to go after Luke?
I have no idea. Oh, and again, too, another plot hole. How did she find out that Luke was Anakin's son? Because the message never said Luke is Vader's son. It just said there's a boy on Tatooine. And she just put that all together. Like, what? I think the rational explanation for that would have been like, Obi-Wan had an affair and has a son of his own, or I had an affair and have a, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe she just wanted to get back at Obi-Wan again. I don't get the hate for
I think
Obi-Wan,
she knew.
but
I think she ends up saying, well, this is his son, or like, I want revenge. Like, I think that's why she went for him. And that's what she says is, well, this is revenge for what he did to me. And again, first of all, how did she find that out? Two, okay, what sense is, and she's already been evil so far.
Because it just doesn't really line up to me, because like, oh, this whole plan was to get Vader for revenge. That's awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like, okay,
cool.
like commit to it so you can do that and save the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. But
she enjoyed what she did. It wasn't like she was a double agent,
like enjoying it, and it was like truly evil at times.
And she she wanted to climb the ranks. Like, it didn't seem like she was just like, I want to get closer to Vader. It was just like, to me, she felt like a power ambitious Sith. And and at the end, she's evil until she decides not to be, so I would say too, with Reva, and again, I don't hate Moses Ingram. I don't hate her or anything about her. And again, I don't think it's her fault that her character is written this way. But I would say that I didn't really like when she was like trying to be intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't.
I think it was early. I think, to be honest with you, I think it got better as she went.
Yeah,
I think so too. I think by the end of the show, I was actually enjoying her acting a little bit more. I think in the first couple episodes, I felt it was forced a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I felt it was I did feel it was a little bit forced, like her aggressive, sort of intimidating scenes.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Yeah.
But it got better. But I gotta say, every episode it seemed to get better. And like,
well, I think
she ended up doing a good job with what she had.
Well, I liked when she was like, it was when she was like yelling and being like trying to be aggressive. That's when I just didn't buy it. But when she was like being a little bit lower and more aggressive, I bought that. And then when she was emotional at the end about what happened to her, and that's why she didn't give to Luke, great. and like being like, am I him? Am I Anakin now? And she was crying. Like, that got me. That made me tear up. So I mean, like she killed that part. I didn't like it when she was doing that stuff. And maybe just on her end, she was just trying to figure out as an actor, like, why does this make sense to me? That could have been something too. She was thinking, she's like, why am I mad at Obi-Wan, even though like he didn't do anything? That maybe that was.
I mean, I get it if you're an Inquisitor and you're hunting Jedi, right? And this is the big prize. I mean, this is the big prize.
Yeah.
But if she's a double agent who wants to kill Vader, why do you hate Obi-Wan so much?
And it's just like you haven't had any other better moments around Vader than
please someone explain this? Too. If we're missing something here, please let us know. I'd like to understand it better.
But if you had to explain it and be like, well, in this comic of this,
the show needs
to be able to tell you guys. So if you're just like, well, you should know through this. No, the show needs to be able to tell you. You need to be able to read the show on it. I would say her connection and frustration to Obi-Wan made no sense to me. Her frustration with being messed up as a kid by Vader, but I was interested in and thought could be cool, except for the fact that she was probably doing way worse things than that already anyways. You know what I mean? Like, right. It looked like she was maybe like hesitating, wanting to torture Leia, but it looked like she was probably still going to do it. And the fact that she's still putting her through that, you know, I mean, it's just like, a good guy wouldn't do that. You know, why would you strap a kid up to the torture table and be like, well, I'm going to wait until someone needs me? You know, it just, no, and that's just writing to me. The writing for that just made no sense. They just needed to tie it into the Kenobi stuff that they did have. And it just didn't make sense.
Absolutely.
So I just didn't like that. I would say the other thing I didn't like, like you were talking about, well, just also too going off of performances. And again, do not launch a campaign and whoever plays young Leia, don't think I hate you or hate your acting, because me as a child trying to act, I would be atrocious. I wouldn't have made it.
I think she like was a believable young Leia. I think that's what Leia would be like as a kid. There was
definitely some parts I was like, oh, that's not good. But yeah, I would say, I would agree with that though. I can see why they cast her as Leia.
She looked like her too.
She looked like her. I think there's a lot of moments where like you got that like a spunk from her. But I would say there was moments with her that it was kind of bad. You know what? And we talked about this too. It wasn't necessarily that she was bad sometimes. And again, it was just writing. It was like people responding to her like she is an adult and
like high stakes situations.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's listen to her. And even Obi-Wan at times is just like,
I was very frustrated with,
and sometimes I was
Obi-Wan with her.
And she was annoying, like, but she was meant to be annoying. Like Leia's character was meant to be annoying in the show.
Yeah, and she was meant to learn to respect her parents by the end. So I mean, I guess I can't really crap on her too much, but there was a lot of scenes around her character that were annoying. Let's talk about the awful chase scene.
So
when she was kidnapped the first time and how atrocious.
Now this is not her fault though.
No,
this is like the directing, like whoever like said, okay, that's it.
The stunt coordinator,
stunt performer, and then the editor who's like putting this footage together and being like, yep, that one's good to go through. Not that I don't know if they can change it at that point, but it was so bad that I'd be like, can we reshoot that? Because these guys are chasing Leia, and it looks like it looks like they are half jogging, and then it looks like they can't figure out how to get by a branch that's like sideways. It looks like they are like so confounded by how to like, what do I do? Like, what do I? And it launched a fantastic like series of TikTok memes where people are like running from their friend at half speed, and like they put like a chair in this hallway that you can still go around the chair, but the person's like, oh. And then like the person waits for them to keep chasing them. And let me tell you, it doesn't happen once. Like that was bad. The first one was glaringly bad. And I was watching with my girlfriend, and when it happened, I literally said, that was bad.
Yeah.
Like right in the moment.
And and these bad scenes, I didn't go back and watch again. I saw it the first time and it took me out, right? Like if there's like when we talk about the throne scene in The Last Jedi, the fight scene. First time I saw it, I was just like, this is amazing.
It was amazing.
If you go back and actually rewatch that like 100 times, and people have, they've broken it down, and like the fight, like there is a lot of parts that just don't make sense. And like if you actually pay attention, they are bad. They're like mistakes, like, whoa, how'd you miss it? But these were things the first time I watched them, I was noticing, and they're like glaring obvious, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's noticing them.
So it was in the first episode, and then it's in the second episode when Leia's running away from Obi-Wan and nobody can catch her. And then
Obi-Wan a Jedi.
Yeah. And then What's more in that one is that Reva goes on a crazy parkour run sequence, which some of it was cool. Like when she there's a move in Jedi Fallen Order where he's running and he pushes like a bridge. He like makes a bridge out of something and runs over it. She did that. That was sweet.
That
But then there were
uses, like, a
times she
force
would
push.
just like she would like do an unnecessary flip that easily took like an extra second on her time on her. Listen, she's trying to get from point A to point B as fast as she possibly can.
Mhm.
And she's like just doing backflips. And I was just like, this doesn't feel, it reminds me of that Key and Peele sketch with Harriet Tubman. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
With the bales of hay, the Underground Railroad, and she's like flipping over all the hay bales. And that's what it feels like right here, because
it was just unnecessary parkour, like the
go,
Office parkour. I just watched that today.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was just so unnecessary. It was a thing.
Like, it is necessary to make a bridge. That's cool.
Hmm.
She does have to do jumps over buildings, but it didn't look great all the time either.
Now, again, this isn't Moses Ingram's fault at all. We're not saying her. We're not saying she did bad in these moments. Again, I thought she was pretty athletic and cool.
Oh yeah,
she just looks very athletic and she's attractive.
Her lightsaber duels were good.
Yeah, and I'm sure when she was doing this, she was like, I've got the Disney Star Wars team doing the stunts. Like, whoever's going to edit this, and like, it's going to look cool. And they're like, I'm sure like maybe even the stunt guys were like, we've got the wire set up. We're going to have you do this. And she was just like, I'm going to show people I do all my own stunts or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure like she might've went through like so many, not her fault, but I mean, whoever choreographed that run, whoever like, they were literally just like, it was like a kid with an action figure. Like, oh, now they'll do this and this.
Yeah. It took me out of the show is what it did. It took me out.
And if it was like just that, I might not. I would have been like, oh, that was kind of weird. Yeah, it was like we just had the Leia thing before that. We just had other like
scenes, and then another chase scene, and now you're doing this, and then again, and I can't remember if it's episode 4. It's the episode where Obi-Wan goes to the water fortress, and he's sneaking in
to save Leia for the second time.
And this could be maybe not as bad as the first running one, but this was a bad mistake. And I've seen it talked about a little bit, but not as much as other things. But Obi-Wan goes to hide from 2 stormtroopers that are walking in a hallway. The stormtroopers come into frame, walking about 10 feet in front of Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan then jumps behind the barrier. And I was just like, that looked bad. Like, there's zero chance, unless they're walking like with their eyes closed, that they wouldn't have seen him. So that was bad to me. That was bad editing. That was bad sort of maybe directing. Like, why not have them maybe like you see them come around the corner and you time it so he jumps away. So that was another like not a huge part of the show.
Yeah.
But it was just something that, again, was just like, really?
And I think too, what a lot of times what shows do is they probably do what you just saw. What we saw there is when like the characters do end up seeing each other, but they cut it in a way that, oh, you see them leave and you go to like another angle where it looks like that wasn't the case, that they weren't in there. But They just like, nope, just keep it there.
It just was. Yeah. Anyway, that was another thing I didn't like. And I'm trying to think. I think we've covered most of the things.
Like editing kind of like
editing was not
I would say another time too for me was when Obi-Wan was first going to have his showdown with Vader on the planet. There's a scene where Obi-Wan is like running around. It's like kind of like a mining sort of site. So there's like these like mounds of like gravel, dirt stuff every now and then. And Obi-Wan's like going through, and it's the first time we see him turn his lightsaber on, which is pretty sweet. And then Vader comes around, like around a mound, and Obi-Wan sees him and like runs away. And like they just kept it like wide, and it was on Vader, and it just seemed like it took Obi-Wan forever to go from where he was standing to like behind something. And it just, I don't know, it just looked to me when I first saw it, I was like, I look kind of like pathetic. And
he didn't. Not when he ran
And
away.
not-
he
and I don't
like
mean, like,
ran into
in
another
character.
open space too.
yeah, it was just like it just. I was like, I can still like kind of see you.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's the kind of thing you're on set and the director's like, yeah, just run there, and then in post production they're gonna make it look like you like did it like a speed run, or they're gonna cut it,
Yeah.
in a way. And like, you know what I mean? Because we were just talking to Millie Brady from The Last Kingdom, and she's like, on camera, you can't run as fast as you can. It doesn't show well on camera.
I was
You
thinking
need
of this.
you need to run like half speed, and then they'll make it look good, right?
Yeah.
and
That way you can actually see it too.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it was just.
So I don't think I was Ewan McGregor being old and running wrong. The guy looks athletic. I'm thinking, again, this is just like editing stuff. It's just bad.
And there's something else that I have a bit of a complaint about with this specific lightsaber duel. And let's just touch on this lightsaber duel too, because this was a pretty awesome moment as well in the show, when Vader shows up on this planet looking for Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah.
And ends up finding Obi-Wan. And this is when Obi-Wan truly like feels his presence. And he goes in the first time with his own eyes, he sees Vader. And Vader doesn't say a word when he shows up. He knows Obi-Wan's here, and he's going to make a demonstration to like pull him out somehow. And he just starts like going ham on like the citizens of this town for like just horrible Vader.
Just doesn't
like,
even look at them.
Yeah.
He's just like putting his arm up, just force choking people, like dragging them out of their doors and on the streets and stuff.
And and Obi-Wan's watching this. And you know what though? Like, this was a cool one where like at one point, like they show where Obi-Wan is, and then like Vader goes to look at that spot and he's gone. That was cool. I was like, oh, Obi-Wan maybe just use force speed there. Maybe. I don't know what I thought, but there's something like that.
That's what I just assumed. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so then they go and they finally show down, and it's awesome. Obi-Wan ignites his lightsaber, and it's like the only thing illuminating the screen. And Vader could have demolished him if Vader wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time Obi-Wan's like used his lightsaber in like 10 years.
And it's obvious.
And it's obvious. And he's basically in defense mode. He's just like getting the lightsaber, like just block it. He's like always on the defensive. And Vader, again, doesn't want to kill him. Because again, if Vader wanted to kill him, he would have killed him in like 2 seconds. Vader wants this guy to suffer like he suffered. And so they get to the point where, you know, Vader's won this little duel. He's chased him around a bit.
He's beat him up with the lightsaber.
Beat him up. He summons this. He's basically like force choking him.
Yeah, he just reaches out the force and grabs him, and like
just grabs him,
and like
it elevates
everyone,
him.
like
so
my
easy.
sister was being so annoying during this. She's like, "Why doesn't he just use the force on him?" And it's just like,
right.
Well, if you could do that on every Jedi would just be they'd be fighting to try and use the force on you first. How I've always thought about it, you know, is that because both people know how to use the force, there's some sort of just inherent defense that you have like up against that, so people just can't just grab you when you're. That's why you have to fight each other with a lightsaber. Right. Otherwise, it would just be, you know, force grabbing each other.
And they do use the force on each other at times, but they both can use it. So it's like,
and I think that's too like it's when your defenses are down though. But I think it's just because Obi-Wan's so disconnected from the force, Vader's just able to go wham, and he's strong with the force too. So I mean, anyway, he's just completely owning him right now.
Owning him, and he summons fire, like we talked about earlier, which was amazing. And he drags Obi-Wan through it, which I did not see coming. Using the force again. So he's using the force. He's now using the force across the fire, by the way, at this point. Don't forget how much Vader wanted to do this himself and find Obi-Wan, like how deeply he wants Obi-Wan, because that's going to be important in my next point.
And Obi-Wan too, like we just said, was conscious and was in the middle of a fight when this happened.
Yeah. And anyway, he drags him through. Ultimate redemption.
Ultimate redemption.
You know,
this is his redemption here.
Yeah. And I think he just wanted to keep Obi-Wan as his like torture puppet for the next.
That's what he said.
Until he kills him. Yeah. He just wanted to make him suffer. Tala, who was an interesting character who played this she was posing as as working for the Empire, but actually helping Jedi.
Yeah, she's an Imperial officer, but she's like
state-
running the Jedi Underground Railroad.
Yes, exactly, which is pretty cool. And she left Leia by herself. Dum 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 dum
Dum,
dum.
dum, dum, dum.
Again, another
And
like
even though
that's a good
Obi-Wan
thing.
told her, he was like, I am going away so he doesn't find Leia and so I can help the pound you. Your one goal is to make sure that what I'm doing makes sense, is to make sure Leia goes and gets safe.
Right.
And then halfway through, Leia's just, and again, this was like the moments, like, I
Yeah.
don't like how people respond to Leia. Leia's like, no, go. And this grown adult is like, sure, I'll just leave you here, kid.
Yeah.
Even though the Empire is here
Yeah.
with literally the
Inquisitors
top
and
dog
Vader.
and all the like the Inquisitors. That was so stupid.
It was dumb. But anyway, so the only reason Obi-Wan survives this is because she goes to help him and she like makes an explosion happen. But like Vader's fine. Obi-Wan's passed out. And so the droid, and I like this droid that she reprogrammed. It's an Empire droid. But she reprogrammed it to like basically listen to her, and it doesn't talk. So
It's like a work droid. It just
like a
like
work
moves
droid.
boxes around and stuff, like a forklift, I think.
yeah, but it is supposed to be an Empire droid, it seems, because I've seen other of them on like the Empire ships. So anyway, for some reason, Vader, who wanted so badly to come find Obi-Wan here, they just stops there. He was just reaching out with the Force to pick him up. Now, if anybody knows why he couldn't have like gone to pick up Obi-Wan again and like bring him over here,
There's
to
no
the side
reason.
of the fire,
There's no
because he's
reason.
passed out.
There's no reason. Because what we just
the
saw
only
too.
reason I can maybe see is that it does show Vader looking and seeing the droid go over and pick Obi-Wan up. Maybe Vader was like, okay, the droid's going to collect him and bring him to my ship. Maybe. I'm not super convinced of that. It kind of seems
So like, what point did Vader be like, my package hasn't arrived yet? Where's
I
my?
know.
I'm
Where's
checking
my package?
I'm
Where'd that
checking
droid go?
my email, my notifications.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. You know, so it was like, why did he just give up? You know, like,
Made no sense. And he's just standing there again, like he's not harmed. He's just staring across the fire, looking at it happen very slowly too. By the way, very
because
slowly.
he loves the chase. Maybe. Maybe he
And
just
and the
wanted
thing
him
is,
to be
too,
like paranoid.
And like we just established, he's not afraid of the fire. He was just standing in front of it, and then he force pushes Obi-Wan after he burns him. He's the one who force pushes Obi-Wan and puts out the fire at the same time. So
This man
he
must
can
have.
he can put out the fire. He can just force push, blow it out. So one, if the fire's what's stopping him, he can put it out. We've just seen him put it out. We literally just saw him put it out. We know he can grab Obi-Wan as he's conscious and awake, being fight. And right now he's unconscious. So there's just no excuse he couldn't
That's
put out the
stupid.
fire. There's no excuse he couldn't reach across and grab him through the fire, even if the fire is an issue. And there's no excuse he can put out the fire and just grab Obi-Wan then.
It's
And
dumb.
and that made no sense. It made no, like, he's just standing right there.
Yeah.
That they obviously had to have him get away. And I think what they should have done is, I think she should have led some group of resistance people there, and they should have been like raining
Yes.
down blaster fire.
That'd be believable.
But
That'd
one
be
person
totally believable.
who shot like once or twice, and there's a bunch of
But
stormtroopers
here's the
there
thing.
and Lord Vader.
They do that later with another kind of a silly thing that I just thought of. They do have
Hmm.
them rain down later when Obi-Wan's trying to sneak Leia out in his trench coat,
No.
which was just like, come on.
So again, it's like we just had this awesome moment, and then I'm just like, well, that it kind of takes me out of it. Even though like I want Obi-Wan to get away, and I want
do
them
too.
to have a better showdown. It's still just like,
Why does he
this
give up?
is what? I'm just
I
like
don't know.
this. Like you couldn't just
I'd
have
love
more
a
people
reason.
shooting.
I'd love a valid reason that made me come to terms with this, but
There's
I
not
can't
going to be
think of
any
one.
reason.
Talked to a lot of people.
There's not gonna be
Can't
any
think
reason.
of one.
And again, too, I'm just annoyed too that Leia just gets captured again. It's like, so, and that's where to me it just felt as though, you know, everything that happened before that with Reva and the Inquisitor stuff, it just felt like, all of that stuff could have been cut out, and it literally could have just been Reva kidnaps Leia there and takes her to the base there, and then we could have had this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have Leia captured, trouble happens. Leia captured, trouble happens again. And it just didn't make sense.
And listen, Tala is a cool character too, by the way. But she cannot take out a stormtrooper by slapping his helmet.
Oh my god,
that was another thing that was just painfully like, really, you guys like kept that in. Other than that, she was pretty cool, I gotta say. And she dies with her robot later on when they're being attacked. That was cool.
And we both said didn't really care though when she died. I was just
wasn't heartbroken.
I thought she was an interesting character.
I thought she was an interesting character.
But
the actress did a good job.
It wasn't like Rogue One when people were dying. When people were dying in Rogue One, I remember thinking, like, "Oh man, we just lost that guy. I like that guy."
Yeah.
I didn't. That way. I didn't feel it. I was like, "All right, well, there goes a character that's not Anakin or Obi-Wan, I guess." Oh well. Oh well.
And then like Vader does another in that sequence after she dies. They're like chasing and trying to get away. Vader does another amazing. He's just displaying the Force abilities this season, and he grabs this transport ship, this huge transport ship with one hand, and just slams it down, makes it explode, and then that explosion, another one takes off, and he just is not quick enough to get that one. I guess. I can get over this one. Yeah, that was the plan. Obi-Wan was trying to outsmart him.
But if all the other things didn't happen, I wouldn't have cared. I've been like, all right, well, I can let that go. Like if someone else would have been nitpicking that and there wasn't all these other things that
I'd be like, come on.
I would have been like, whatever, dude, like you had to get away.
There's too many things.
But it's because of the other stuff that goes down. And then rolling off that scene, he fights Reva,
this was awesome.
Awesome. Because again, Reva's cool. Looks like she's a badass with the lightsaber, but if she would have like stood like a real chance against Vader, I'd have been like, all right, what are we doing? What are we doing here? You know, this is Lord Vader, right?
Yeah.
But she doesn't. Like he just completely owns her. He's like toying with her. At one point he even like he throws her a lightsaber. Yeah. Eventually he takes it back again.
Yeah.
And when he's holding two, I was like, this is cool. And I thought he was gonna Count Dooku her.
Yep.
You know.
But he doesn't. He like throws her a lightsaber.
And then
crazy.
He stabs her through and he's like, I knew it was you, youngling. And so it's just like,
what? You let one live? Like Order 66? That's surprising.
But like, so he stabbed her when she was a kid. We see the flashback. And this was cool when we see Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
It wasn't cool he stabbed a kid, but it was cool. Like we saw him stab.
I'm kind of surprised they showed that.
They showed. And but they show like her point of view, a flashback of when he stabs her when she's a kid. And we see him now as Darth Vader in his armor stab her now. Mm-hmm. And
apparently
she didn't die either time. So
somehow.
And then also too, then we see the Grand Inquisitor.
Vengeance is why.
Yeah, vengeance. And then we see the Grand Inquisitor, who she stabbed
earlier on
before she told Obi-Wan about Anakin being alive. She stabbed him through. That's why the whole internet was like, "What? Like this takes place before Rebels, but he's dead." No, apparently
I read something. He has two stomachs. I read, but I don't know. Apparently, you can just survive if you want revenge really bad too.
I did not like either of these moments when both he lives after. I don't know. I think I would have preferred there being a loophole, or at least show some robot parts or something. Like so you can get stabbed with a lightsaber now and be fine. And
this one character does it twice.
Literally, Reva has survived 2 stab, and then literally the next episode when she's fighting off Beru and Uncle Owen, maybe you could say that's why she didn't do amazing against them, why she didn't just instantly kill them. But she looked pretty fine moving around. Like there wasn't any obvious like, oh, I can't. It's kind of
why
arm.
Like my rationale why like Kylo Ren was not able to beat Finn was because he already got shot by the bowcaster.
Yeah, but we saw him. But we saw that he was shot. He was even trying to pound on his wound to amp up the dark side, right? But we don't see her guarding her side.
No.
We don't see anything saying this is why
I
she's
think
hurting.
she had it bandaged up. But like still, it's just like I don't get that. They could have explained that more. Like, does she have like, is she from? I don't even know. Is she like a different species? She's not. I think she's human.
She's human.
And
Yeah,
like,
it just makes no sense. It's just why did you even stab her? It's just
so I don't get that yet. I don't know if I will.
No.
Another thing that just I wish wasn't in the show.
Yeah, and just to me,
but
like you can stab people with a lightsaber and it doesn't do anything. Qui-Gon, people.
But I just want to go back and just talk again about how much disrespect Vader dished out on Reva in that scene. Just absolute, like, I'm not even gonna take the effort to like grab my lightsaber off my belt. Like, I'm not even gonna like take the 2 seconds it would be just to grab it, and I'm just gonna use the Force. Oh, you want to stab me? No, thank you.
I love seeing.
Thanks.
We saw it a couple times from him in this using the Force.
He did it to
stop
Obi-Wan in the last one too, which was cool. But Obi-Wan quickly was not going to allow that to happen much longer.
Yeah, he did the Anakin move on him then.
Yeah. But just absolute disrespect. Take your lightsaber.
No thanks.
And then give it back. Like, you can, here, take it again. I was just like, oh my God. So it was really cool to see Vader just go absolute boss mode.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, when he brought down the cargo ship and then he slams it down and he just rips open the hull,
so cool.
Just using the Force. Those were just amazing Vader moments. Just he's just being quiet. He's not saying anything. He's just being just this force of nature.
When he buried Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan did something that I would have it's sort of like when Luke in Last Jedi was getting shot by a million things and we thought he would have created a force shield or something.
Yeah, force bubble.
That's kind of what Obi-Wan did. Obi-Wan's sort of that was pretty awesome. And I love too the little scene when Obi-Wan gets out of the giant hole once he finally pushes all the rocks off. He has the voices in his head for inspiration, and he pushes the rocks off. And I don't know if you remember this, but the way he climbs out that hole is so Jedi. It's he's so smooth and
he had a sweet jump stuff. Yeah, it looked good.
But it didn't look like too much. He didn't do a backflip out of it.
No, it was just literally just jump.
Just agility, the quickest way to get out of this hole.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what. Yeah, to me, it just. I think this could have been a movie. And I think what they should have done is they should have just had a cool Inquisitor revenge coming from the
I like the guy who played the original Grand Inquisitor.
Me too.
I thought he did a great job, especially for a character that's already established.
Again, though, I didn't care about him either because I wasn't watching the show for him. You know what I mean?
No. But I was when he came on the screen, because I think he's the first one we see in the show.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. If that's who Obi-Wan's going to fight, this could be fun, and they don't really ever fight.
No. I don't think he even fights.
You know what
Reva.
I was also hoping for? Well, yeah, Reva just stabs him, right?
Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan doesn't fight Reva.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. He doesn't. They have a talk
for.
And she almost stabs him through the door. And Obi-Wan has a sweet force push, at which point Reva at that time in the show was like, no, I'm not going to do my quick parkour run. I'm just going to walk.
Literally takes forever. There's stormtroopers that are in the back who walk past her on the way in.
Makes sense. So anyway,
and there's just hundreds of stormtroopers going into a funnel, open firing on 20 rebels, and can't hit anyone, and that to me was also just come on.
Yeah. So there's that. But the other thing too is I was really hoping for an Obi-Wan Reva fight.
Yeah.
And I was like, how is he going to get there in time to do it? And guess what? Obi-Wan dropped the ball of watching Luke. If Reva didn't change her mind at the last second, Obi-Wan's number one. You had one job, dude. Would have failed,
mm-hmm.
Which I didn't love. I would have kind of preferred him to show up and protect Luke. He had that ping of the Force, oh shit, something's wrong.
Yeah, it
Boom,
was
I'm
cool.
there as quick as I can.
I like that because of the arc they set up with her, that she makes the decision not to do it.
Yeah, I like that.
But I wish he would have been there. Maybe he just like watches from the back. Maybe like we even see him like he senses that she's not going to do it, and he like holds back Owen and Beru and like lets her do it. But he's there, and he's ready, and he's got
he's in control of the situation.
That's what I mean.
Control.
Yeah.
But I would have also.
I was thinking the same thing as you.
And if not that, and Reva was not going to have a redemption moment, I would have liked to see another epic duel. Now where Obi-Wan like is just totally the master, like just like ridiculously just aces her. I would have liked that because that would have been like, oh, Obi-Wan's really come. I mean, he beat Vader again. He beat Anakin again. So we kind of got that anyway. But I was hoping all season that he and Reva would fight too. I am happy Reva had a redemption moment because I
thought the moment was good. But again, I called it from the very beginning. I was like, they're going to try and make her like the sympathetic villain. Like Disney seems to be doing that a lot here recently. They're like, look how bad this person is, but look, these are their motives. Why? Like how they did with WandaVision. I called that from the very beginning. I knew that was going to happen. And I thought they nailed the moment when she does, but it's also leading up to it. It's like, well, she mutilates people for no reason. She's obviously been an Inquisitor. She's had to do some bad stuff to get to the level she's at, obviously. She went through that town, with Vader, and she's maniacally on her own looking out for other people, which she doesn't have to do. I think she's already Grand Inquisitor at that point.
Yeah.
So if her mission is just be Grand Inquisitor to be next to Vader to kill him, she doesn't need to try harder anymore. She just needs to go get Vader, So she could have even went after when he was going after Obi-Wan, right? She knows he wanted to be alone for that. And maybe she could have just ganged him upon then when he's distracted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, just the whole Reva thing, it just didn't make sense.
Didn't work. And like I said, the only thing that really saved the show for me, and I've said this before, it's not really fair for me to say because I could watch Obi-Wan flipping pancakes and I would watch that show. I would watch that show because that's what Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. Again, how old were you when you were watching that?
Like I 12. Said, I was
12. I was probably like 9 years old at that time. And so my childhood hero, man. Any Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan on screen. I need some of that. So they can make another Obi-Wan show of him just like meditating in the desert. I'm gonna watch it.
That's honestly when I was thinking of what I wanted from the show. That's what I would have loved to have just seen him in the desert having self-doubts.
Learning about the side of the Force. I would have liked to see him learn more how to contact a Force ghost or how
and becoming like wiser, seeing him get to the Ben, becoming, because I think we had some cool moments, but I don't feel like we got like that moment where he steps from being Obi-Wan to being like almost Yoda. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which I think that's what I would have loved to see him, is go through that in the desert, talking to Obi-Wan, still getting over some moments, and then going on the mission at some point for Leia.
Totally agree.
And that's when he runs into Vader.
This show also showed things that shocks me for a Disney show.
Yes.
Gory. And also, I mean, obviously the kids getting killed, which even in the Revenge of the Sith, they barely showed.
They didn't show.
I mean, they showed that barely in a hologram, and the kid that did get killed, I think there's like a teenage kid that's like getting choked. That's how sensitive they were to that in the movie, and maybe they cut some things out. They straight up showed the lightsaber slashes of these two young kids.
Yeah,
like and then Reva, obviously. That was just like, whoa.
Mm. Also,
shocked. And then the guy who got chopped in half.
I thought that was cool though. Like I'm not Disney Plus. Don't take that
about that. I was actually.
And just even Obi-Wan getting dragged through the flames, like, holy crap. Like, and that's when he had him grabbed up above the fire, I was like, oh, he's just going to like dangle him, make him like hot over the flames. But like dragging him in the dirt through the fire, screaming, I was like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe.
Get that dude back to tank.
But I mean, if you think about it though, Star Wars though, when it doesn't ever like try and push those buttons. It's not like The Boys where it's like, the show's like theme is gore, but like if you think about the original episode 4, right, like Obi-Wan just
dismemberment.
pulls out a lightsaber and cuts out a guy's arm for like being mean to Luke, and there's just blood in an arm. And then episode 3, right, we see Anakin catch on fire with his arms and legs cut off, right? Obi-Wan leaves a disabled veteran to burn,
Oh, and can I say one other thing?
Yeah.
How come no one in Star Wars can finish a job? Like, finish the job. I get why in Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan can't go further.
Yeah.
But, like, I was a little weird, like, okay, you just, like, Vader has bent the knee. And you're just gonna let him, like, why do you think he walked away there?
So again, this was a moment though that did what, even when I was watching it the first time, I was like, this whole scene is amazing. I love the conversation they're having, but he just leaves.
Like, I know his goal wasn't necessarily there to kill Vader like it was back in episode 3.
It was really just
his goal was to distract
them
him
from the rebels, right?
But now he has this opportunity
Yeah.
to do something that he wasn't able to do. And now, like,
that was
it's
his mission
not
before,
Anakin.
right?
It was.
Exactly.
But now it's not Anakin. So now I think
he has even more reason to kill him now.
Yeah.
And than he did before, which is, like you said, like his mission when he went to Mustafar.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll do what I must, like,
yeah,
I don't want to. Like, he even said, Yoda, like, send me for the Emperor. I can't kill Anakin. So yeah, makes sense why he couldn't then. But then there with Vader, why he didn't?
Yeah.
Again, that to me is just bad writing.
Maybe
I'm
give me a reason. Give me a reason.
I think what it should have been was, Vader gets up, starts fighting again or something, and he should have got like a sense of Luke in danger, and that's
have told Vader that Padme said there's good in you. Could he have done something like that and been like, Anakin, I know you're in there?
Yeah.
Like,
so that's one thing I saw a lot of people talk about why they thought this show would like solve like a plot hole that was in the original trilogy is when and again, I never thought this was something I've just saw from other people, when Darth Vader's talking to Luke in Return of the Jedi before he takes him to the Emperor. Vader says, Obi-Wan, and Luke's like, I know there's good in you. Vader says, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. And a lot of people say, oh, that's supposed to mean that they talked again and that he tried to redeem him. And that, I would say that I never felt like that this happened or that happened in this show.
Yeah.
But yeah, like what you're saying, maybe that is something he could have done. I definitely think they should have had some sort of reason why he didn't. Like, I think the show was just like, well, he's disgusted and he left him. But it's just he's
disgusted, or like he still loves Anakin. He saw Anakin's face and like, but that wasn't Anakin's face anymore. I mean, he did see briefly. I don't know. It just was weird that he just walked away, and I'm just sitting there like, what?
Yeah,
or make it the even better. And this is super believable. Like, as maybe he's considering finishing the job, he gets that force ping telling him Luke is in danger.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And he just bolts.
Mm-hmm. But I think Vader should have like got up and maybe started fighting again or something to make it seem like I can't waste time with this. Because right then, to me, Vader was like finished. He's like gasping for air. He's like lumbering around.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan is on his A game again, right?
Yeah.
His strength is returned. The weakness is there, but so I mean, just like,
it's a great line.
That was cool. That was cool.
Vader,
I hear some people hating on that line. I thought it was sweet. Sweet because that to me it sounds like someone who's a dark side. Like they would just think anyone who has light goodness in them, like that's weakness, right?
That's weakness. Like you're
weakness
strong.
Is still there.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. Like, you got to read into it a little bit, but can we talk about the voice?
Oh yeah, so the voice too in that scene. We forgot this when it's going from Hayden Christensen to James Earl Jones.
Oh my god,
that was sweet how they did it. That was amazing.
It was so cool. It just kept going back and forth, and then the yell Obi-Wan at the end, a couple guttural yells that are a mix of the voices, is like Hayden Christensen again killing it. The brief times we get to see him.
Oh yeah.
There was one earlier time when he was in a robe in the desert that was so cool to see him in a Jedi robe again.
And I feel like these are moments Hayden Christensen wanted back when he first got the role. I feel like these are moments that he was hoping to get more of, as more Darth Vader moments. So I'm so happy he was able to get that. You know, I'm so happy, and I like the interviews I've seen with him. It looks like he enjoyed it, and I think, you know,
again, he's someone who got a lot of hate too.
He got a lot of hate. And I think, and I can't even read that in the interviews. I think like part of him is still like traumatized from all of the hate he got, because he's kind of like,
why am I doing this again?
He's like, trying to like be like, oh yeah, those fond memories you're asking me about, you know, but probably at the time it probably just like he
and also Ewan McGregor's
farmer.
Ewan McGregor is like defensive too of the prequels. I
like that.
Did you get that? He's like, you guys forget that these movies were made for kids. He keeps saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's when I've seen him talk, he'll be like, it's so good now, like the feedback we get now, from people, because, you know, when we were making them, it sometimes it just didn't feel like it, you know, like the critics were really harsh, and like that's the only voice we heard was the critics, and now we get like all this positive feedback from fans, and now the people who grew up with this is their Star Wars, and now
Daisy Ridley's getting all the bullshit.
That's what I wondered too. Like, I rip on the sequels. I'm like, am I one of those people that
we kind of are in a way?
We kind of are, but again,
this seems more unanimous.
Yeah, I would say.
I don't know.
The thing is too,
we don't talk to a lot of people from the younger generation though.
Yeah, and that's
growing up with this. We'll have to wait and see.
I literally too, when I went away for last week or 2 weeks ago, when I drove down to the lake, I saw like a group of kids, and they all had on Star Wars shirts that were of the sequel trilogy, and I was like,
they probably love it, dude.
That's what. Yeah, they grew up.
Maybe it's us. We're curmudgeons now.
But I wonder if they're going to grow up, and when they like go through and like start appreciating Star Wars stuff, are they going to look at the sequels and be like, well, this doesn't match up with all the other stuff, you know? Because
I do that a little bit with episode 2 sometimes.
I do that too. And I even when I was a kid, I was bored with a lot of episode 1. Pretty much like after the Jedi escape Naboo with the crew the first time, and then pretty much up until like the Gungan fight at the end, I remember being bored as a kid, and even now as an adult, I usually like fast forward through that, honestly. I think I like episode 2 more now than I did as a kid.
Oh, really?
Episode 3 has always been great. I love that as a kid.
I don't think anyone can disagree.
That's one of my.
That doesn't feel like it's made for kids. Like, I know Ewan McGregor says that one does not made for kids.
That one, to me, that was like the best movie experience. I remember like when I was 11, I was like, this is what going to the movies is for. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could like go back. When I think about like movie experiences, I think about that. I think about Endgame, Infinity War. I would say when I first saw Force Awakens, that was probably one of the, like, that was like the best like modern. If they would have kept delivering, but anyway, they're not going down the rabbit hole on that stuff. Joker was a good movie experience.
Joker was one that I just knew immediately was an incredible movie. But yeah,
Dark Knight too.
Dark Knight. Yeah,
even I was young then. I appreciate Dark Knight more as I get older.
Yeah,
that's something interesting. But it was amazing when I first saw it.
I'll tell you what, man. Like, I don't know. How do we get on this?
I don't even know. We were talking about being curmudgeons about the sequels and how they were hard on those actors. Like,
and we're talking about Hayden Christensen.
And if we're doing that now, I don't know. I
don't know. We gotta look at ourselves here. We gotta self-evaluate.
I would say though, there's a lot of Star Wars now that is new, and I love Mandalorian. Yeah.
It's not that like every new Star Wars things I dislike.
I was loving the sequel. When I first saw Force Awakens, I loved it. When I was watching The Last Jedi for the first time, I was like, I want to love this, I was like scared.
I was like,
if they would have wrapped it up in a way that was good,
The
I
Last
think I
Jedi
would have
is
loved
not
it.
necessarily bad for all of the story reasons. I mean, a couple, but it's a lot of it's the flow of the movie is not great either. And there's some
And
just
tons
giant
of plot holes
and stuff. So
and just
I wouldn't
characters
even
don't make
say
sense.
characters don't make sense and motives that don't make sense.
And then the last one was just a jumbled mess, dude. It was
I think it was a salvage. I didn't.
it was a
dislike it
salvage
as much as
operation.
But
It
anyway,
wasn't. Yeah,
I thought they did as good a job as they could have with what they were given.
it was a salvage though,
It was.
and the whole Emperor thing to me, that's what ruins the perfect story of the original
It discredits
to me. And again,
Me
no,
too.
I love Ian McDermott, and we get to see him in Obi-Wan here. We also
Yes,
get to
we
see him
do.
as a hologram, and Vader's
looked
awesome
happy.
throne room.
Yeah, which looked like the inside of his helmet, by the way.
Yeah,
On Mustafar, we got to see the castle on Mustafar. Vader's. Is that
I love
Fort
his
Castle or
Mustafar
whatever?
castle. The first time we
Fucking
saw that in
awesome.
Rogue One, I was like, "That's
Yeah.
amazing."
By the way, we have to mention that Jedi Fallen Order. A lot of shit was taken from Jedi Fallen Order, like the water fortress, and like the holding the water back, like the water coming into the hallway there. Like it looked exactly the same as it happened in Jedi Fallen Order.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder, because there was a lot of Inquisitor stuff in that too. I almost wonder if this Inquisitor stuff, if they had their own sort of show for that, and they're like, well, we used a lot of that in Jedi Fallen Order. We used a lot of that from stuff we had ideas for maybe they used it in Mandalorian, or maybe they're like, we're going to use this for
And
Ahsoka
they just
now.
combine it. Yeah.
And they're like, well, why don't we just mush it into Obi-Wan? Some of the stuff we have, but oh yeah,
There's
and a
something
scene
else
we
that you-
didn't talk about that's
Yes.
amazing is the flashback duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin. I would say, honestly, though, it wasn't that amazing to me. Like it didn't feel like it was the same tempo.
I love how it starts with him looking at Padme's tower. He's just staring at it out the window. And they're like, it's just good to see them kind of smiling at each other and like, like they were in either between episodes 2 and 3, probably.
Yeah.
That was great.
That was cool. And then
the de-aging wasn't great.
No, it wasn't.
Ewan McGregor was okay. Obi-Wan was okay. Hayden Christensen looked like an old Anakin to me.
Yeah. Well, then, yeah. But and two, I would say just the effects in general too in the show. I feel like I don't know, maybe it's because I was paying attention to them more in this one than when I first saw Mandalorian. I was just like, well, this is a Star Wars show, and they're doing so well. This is the best I've ever seen in a show.
For effects,
I appreciate it. It's good.
Yes.
But now maybe I'm just used to that, like expecting higher stuff, and used to like what movies do now. Because to me, like a lot of times, like ships, like when Vader grabbed that ship that we talk about is an awesome scene. Like to me, the ship looked bad,
Really?
And
I have to go back and rewatch.
Like you said, like the de-aging to me, like I noticed.
We had our complaints. One scene in Mandalorian, we had our complaints with Luke.
Yeah,
but
they hired the guy who did. There's a guy who did like a better deep fake of de-aging Luke. And they hired him then for. I almost said Mandalorian season 3. They hired him for Boba Fett,
which was way better.
Yeah, so
wow,
they used him. They just used that guy.
That's so cool. Why not? I love that. I love that actually.
That's
super cool.
Yeah. So
no.
What else? Do you want to talk about anything else about this show?
Well, again, I just think my score, you might think our score is generous based on all we complain about with the show, because
it kind of is.
But that's how much we loved the Obi-Wan Anakin stuff.
Exactly.
And that sequence you talked about with them fighting, it mirrored the whole episode. Because it would be like, Obi-Wan has the upper hand and Anakin has the upper hand, and it mirrored what was happening in the episode. And at the end, it seems like Anakin won the little duel, but of course Obi-Wan has the last laugh, because he is the master. And
I would have loved to have just seen this as a movie with like Jon Favreau as a director, and maybe even Deborah Chow, who Deborah Chow directed, I think, all of the episodes of this season, and she's directed some of my like favorite Mandalorian episodes too.
Yeah.
Maybe she would have knocked it out of the park. One thing I didn't like, though, and then I wonder if it was the director's choice, was it was kind of like shaky cam when they were dueling at the end, Obi-Wan and Vader. I didn't like that.
Maybe it helped it look better, though, because that was one of my complaints. That's my complaint sometimes in other movies, that like they just show the wide shot and the actors aren't good. But we know Ewan and Hayden are good.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
they practice. But
and to me, like, you could see enough of it that it looked good. Like I never felt like they had to cut to hide anything. It just to me, it was I don't know.
So sweet to me.
That's one complaint about the fight. The rest of the fight I thought was awesome. I would have. That's one thing I was like, get rid of the shaky cam for this. Come on.
Just the way they were missing each other and just slamming into the rocks. The rocks. It was so freaking great. That scene, that episode was amazing. And we touched on Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. You know, it overall as a show, I was disappointed in the whole show.
Same.
But for the moment that counted, they executed those pretty darn well.
The moments that I was worried about, if they would have fudged on them in any way, that's when it would have been like, this is a shit show. You know, this is garbage. But because they nailed those, and I think they nailed them well. I don't think it was just because they were hitting my nostalgia feels. I think it because there was moments that were written that were good. Yeah, you know, we talk about a lot of bad writing. I think there was a lot of good writing, and I think there was a lot of those moments that were executed well. Like when, you know, Obi-Wan, you know, the fight. I mean, the fight was amazing. You know, the acting. Besides the shaky cam, I thought the rest of it was great.
And like I know you talked about it didn't look good when he ran away from Vader in that one scene.
And in the first fight.
But I like that he ran away, because like he probably should have.
Yeah.
Like
no, I like that. I liked
but
how
it just
scared,
didn't look great.
It just didn't look good. No.
Yeah.
So and it's those moments, they were all so good.
Another really cool one was when there's he goes to save Leia and she's being held captive. And it's like he shuts the lights out in the room, which I can totally see Obi-Wan doing.
Yeah.
You know, just going like he does in episode 4 and just like flipping a switch somewhere, sneaking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like it lights up with a lightsaber and he just slashes them. And that was like, he's like, Obi-Wan's getting the skills back. And then he starts deflecting blaster fire again. And it's just like, okay, he knows, he remembers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think
those moments were good. And Ewan was good.
Ewan was great.
Like I said,
Hayden was great.
Hayden was
James
great.
Earl Jones was great.
James Earl Jones was
great. Joel Edgerton was great.
You know what I liked about him was he we only ever saw like grumpy Uncle Owen, right?
Yeah.
So I like that he had that grumpiness, but there was like a care behind it that we got to see, which I really liked.
That was cool.
Yeah. What else? I liked all the Obi-Wan Anakin stuff. I liked a lot of Moses Ingram's performance. I liked when she was like being quiet, intimidating, and I liked her emotional beat at the end. I really liked that. I think a lot of it was just writing around what she was doing that I just didn't like. I would say, and again, just didn't
understand.
I just didn't understand. And again, not her. She's the one just trying to sell these moments. But to me, it would be frustrating to be like, why is Reva mad about this when this has nothing to do with this, and her trying to accomplish this has nothing to do with this? You know, so I mean, there's moments where I was mad with Reva, but it was just writing it didn't make sense. It wasn't Moses Ingram, and again, we've been shitting on the writers. I thought the stuff they did written for Obi-Wan and Anakin was good. I thought their lines when they were together was good. And that's what makes me believe that the movie was written for this
Yeah.
And it was movie quality stuff. And then
Yeah.
they just jammed another Disney Plus show in because they didn't want to risk it. And they didn't know about COVID at the time when they were making this, what people were going to be able to do. And that's how we ended up with this, is what I think happened.
Yep.
I would have loved to have seen this as a movie. I would have loved them to just commit and just go for a 2-hour Obi-Wan Anakin movie, is what I think they could have done. I think it would have been amazing.
Yep. But it was great to see Ewan McGregor back. It's great to see Hayden Christensen back.
Yeah.
Great to hear James Earl Jones again. Some new lines. A lot of things to like. A lot of things that I think Disney needs to be more careful of in the future. And that's overall it. Let us know your thoughts on the show. I think there's probably some things that are debatable in this one. Maybe some things that you didn't think were that big a deal, or
let us know.
Maybe there's some
gripe
things
too
that
much.
could be. Maybe there's some things that we don't understand that can be explained and that we're not seeing, and that's possible.
Yeah.
But overall, happy to see Ewan back. Let's see. Hopefully, next season of Mandalorian is awesome. I think that's our next.
Yes.
Maybe Andor. Does Andor come out? I don't know. But anyway, please continue to like and follow and subscribe here on YouTube and on our other social media networks here. So happy to be talking Star Wars again. It's been a while since we sat down and talked Star Wars. And but yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Like you said, like, subscribe, follow, listen, watch. And it's like we always say, hello there.
Hello there. Oh, they did the line too.
They
to
did
Luke.
it. He said the thing.
He said the thing. He gave him the ship and said the thing.
Hello there.
But
But
goodbye.
May the force be with you.